Hello everybody, I'm Melissa from Untitled Astrology. Today we're going to talk about the astrology of October 19th through 25th. We have quite a few aspects this week, including a new moon in the sign of Libra, so we're going to get into all of that. Before I do, I'd like to remind you to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. If you want to see our weekly videos that come out every Saturday, if you want to get notifications for our live stream meditations that we have Sunday nights 8:30 p.m. then you can find that all right here on YouTube. Go ahead, subscribe, hit the notifications if you want updates about those things. And then if you go over to the Facebook or the Instagram page, that's where updates are. So like there's a couple weeks here where we don't have live meditations. All of those type of things, announcements, updates, and other posts and things like that, those all go to social media pages, as well as the intention that comes out on Fridays. So except for the couple weeks where there are not meditations, on Fridays there's an intention that comes out that's astrologically guided for the upcoming week, and then on Saturday the weekly video like this one comes out, so that way you can take a look at the whole week in its entirety. And then on Sundays we meet live here 8:30 p.m. Eastern time most weeks, and we meditate and we contemplate on what's going on in the sky. We cultivate relationships and we have a personal conversation with what's going on around us, and really just leaning into how it's playing out in your own life. Maybe planning for the upcoming week and whatnot. Really, Friday, Saturday, Sunday releases. The goal and the hope is that it gives you a nice, well-rounded way to connect to the astrology of the upcoming week and make it much more personal for yourself. So yeah, follow, subscribe, all the things, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and of course, meditativeastrology.com is the hub for all the things. So let's go ahead and get right into this week here. We start out on Sunday with a bang. We have Mars and Mercury coming together in the sign of Scorpio. So I've mentioned in the last couple weeks here on the weekly video, as well as during the meditation, that this has been kind of building and this pressure has been kind of like increasing for the last couple weeks. Well, coming through here Sunday, this is where it comes in here. When you have Mercury and Mars coming together in any sign, especially the sign of Scorpio, that Mars rules, you can have this very deep probing but fast alignment of the mental sphere, Mercury, and our action, Mars. Mercury can represent messages, it can represent communications, our thoughts, our perceptions, the way we perceive what other people say to us, the way other people perceive what we say to them, communications with ourselves, questions that can come up with Mercury. And then Mars represents movement. It represents motivation, drive, ambition. Mars represents a separation or a severing of different kinds. There's movement and there's agility with Mars, but also with Mercury. Both of these planets together, both of them on their own move quickly, but then or kind of speed things up, but when they come together, they can move really, really, really fast. So swift decisions and actions, being able to think up a process and then move forward with it, and moving forward with it fairly quickly. Sometimes Mars can bring the courage and the bravery and the energy that is needed to be able to take the action on the things that Mercury is coming up and thinking of. So that decisive action can happen without us necessarily overthinking it, right? Mars and Mercury are going to make us move before we have the chance to overthink it potentially. So just making sure that they aren't irrational or out of spite or something like that, because we are talking about Mars. It's in its feminine sign, but it's still Mars. There still can be a little bit of tension there. I'm thinking about with this transit, I'm thinking about the ability to problem solve. Activities involving movement of some kind, some sort of moving energy or moving materials, things like that. At the same time, Mars and Mercury coming together could potentially represent accidents, so just being careful that we're not like in that invincible stage and feeling like we can just do anything without any sort of consequences. That's always a possibility. And just making sure we're not moving too quickly, because moving fast can be good. We can be really productive. Mercury and Mars in the sign of Scorpio can dig really, really deep. It can dig really deep into our motivations, Mars, but it can also dig really deep into our emotions, into our emotional connections that we have with other people, with ourselves, within ourselves, emotional processing, things like that can come up as well. Feeling, even within that processing, right? Like it can be a lot, it can be really, really deep sometimes, but feeling feeling capable, feeling the strength and the bravery and the courage to be able to dig our heels deep down into something, right? So to explore some sort of subconscious something, to be able to study something, to be able to read a textbook and really get down into the details and take really, really deep notes within there. That could be another possibility with this aspect. But just that strength, that Mars strength, Mars being in its own sign, really, really strengthens things and allows us to move forward strongly and courageously. On a not so great note, if things are moving kind of quickly, if emotions are bubbling up, and our mind is going and our movements are going at the same time, feeling a little sharp-tongued, make sure we think before we speak because there could be regretful words and actions that could come through here. Letting go of something that would actually be beneficial to keep, Mars severing. So making sure we're not losing things out of spite or out of just like momentum in the moment is something that we could definitely think of. And, that could be material or otherwise. These two planets coming together in the sign of Scorpio, I think about the ability to like obsess over something, right? And that could be a good or a bad thing, depending. If we are too obsessive and we are ignoring other things, well, then that's not necessarily beneficial. But if you find something that you feel so passionate and so strongly about, and you are able to stay loyal to the study or stay loyal and faithful to the process, then that's, whether you call it obsession or not, there can be healthy obsessions too, right? Like something that really fills us up and fills us up with knowledge or information or will or something like that. So there's a lot of really strong energy that's coming through here right at the beginning of the week here. And this is going to sit with us for a little while here too. If I go ahead and put the chart up here, so this is set for Sunday the 19th. And if I go ahead and move this forward, you will see that Mars and Mercury are coming together in the 12th house at 18 degrees of Scorpio. If I go ahead and move this forward, we see that they're together on Monday, sitting at 19 degrees. Tuesday, where our new moon is that we're going to talk about, they're sitting together at 20 degrees. And then it's not until Wednesday that we see that they start to separate. So you may have been feeling this growing pressure or this growing strength or this growing passion that is pulling you mentally, physically, feeling like you want to move in a certain way. And it may really start to pop here at the beginning of the week into the middle of the week. I'm going to go ahead and back the chart back up here to Sunday, where we were at. So yeah, that's what we have coming through right away on Sunday here. And then we go ahead and move forward into Monday from there. So if we go ahead and move forward into Monday, we don't have any exact aspects, so we're just looking at the moon here. And then we're going to go ahead and just jump right forward into Tuesday, October 21st. This is where we have the new moon in the sign of Libra here. So that's our next major aspect for this week. We have a new moon forming at 28 degrees of Libra on Tuesday at 8:24 a.m. Eastern time. Times here are always Eastern, so you'll have to translate to your own time zone. So this is a seeding moment. New moons begin something. They begin a lunar cycle, and this is our first full lunar cycle that's going to take us beyond that eclipse energy, right? So the eclipses and how they've started playing out in your life, those can definitely still be taking place here, really up until the next eclipses we have, so give or take about 6 months. But this is our first lunar cycle that is outside of that energy. So now we're starting to reach into a new little bit of space here. And it's in the sign of Libra, right? Venus is sitting in the sign of Libra too. So there's a lot of Venus-Libra energy. So there's a lot of that diplomatic fairness, wanting to bring justice, wanting to bring some sort of leveling to something, but it's at 28 degrees of Libra. So the sun is going to move into the sign of Scorpio just shortly after that new moon, within the next couple days, right? So wanting to create some new level of peace and justice and balance and harmony and understanding, bringing in other people, other perspectives. But it's also probably got something to do with tying up loose ends of something, right? It's at 28 degrees. It's at that one of those last couple degrees of the sign. So, you know, what is it that is like no longer serving you that you now realize you need to move forward from, right? Or is there a certain perspective or a certain way that things have either been working together, thinking about like relationships and with other people. They can be romantic, business, platonic, like any sort of relationships that we have within our lives, but wanting to bring a new level of something, saying, okay, like where we were is no longer where we are. We're going to create something new here, right? We're going to move forward beyond that. You know, so wanting to really understand other perspectives, wanting to bring in other perspectives and have other people understand ours as well, right? Resources. Do all have the resources that we need? Are the scales balanced? You know, am I distributing my resources well? Are others distributing their resources well? There's that social awareness in all of the air signs, but particularly in the sign of Libra on a relational basis, kind of like on a one-on-one communicative basis. You know, do we all have what we need? Do I have my resources? Do you have your resources, right? And how can we move forward together or separately? It's diplomatic and it has tact within it. Like I said, Venus is in the sign of Libra as well. And Venus actually, at the full moon that we have, that comes in the sign of Taurus in a couple weeks, it's interesting to note that Venus will be sitting at 28 degrees of Libra. So the cardinal signs, anything that you have at those late degrees of cardinal signs are really going to be impacted throughout this lunar cycle. So that 28 degrees is pretty important here. And with Venus moving into the position of the new moon, at the time of the full moon, it feels like whatever was started, whatever was initiated within the new moon there, Venus is looking to follow through. She's looking to bring that social cohesion. She's looking to have that awareness of my needs as well as the other people's needs and to be able to move forward with those. So what house is Libra in your chart? Right? What new things do you see beginning to sprout within the house topics of that house? If you're not quite sure, we can do a reading and we can figure it out that way. Mars and Mercury are still sitting together. We mentioned that when we pulled up the chart. So that is still within play for this entire lunar cycle. That deep probing energy of wanting to really get to the bottom of something, that makes me think about how the new moon is at those last couple critical degrees and it's initiating something, but it's finishing something at the same time. Mercury and Mars coming together and wanting to dig all the way down into the muck, wanting to get into all of the details, all of the nooks and crannies, and really dissect and pull things apart, right? But in the name of trying to find maybe a new way of doing things, maybe a more balanced or a way of doing things that just feels more cohesive and more balanced and more together. That Mercury and Mars conjunction, it's applying to trines to Jupiter and to Saturn. So we're going to be talking a whole lot about water trines coming up here at the end of the month. And it's starting to move into that space. So around this time here, we're going to start to find watery connections coming through. It could be that things that connect us to others, especially within the new moon of the sign of Libra, are starting to come together. Water represents that which accumulates, right? Like things accumulate within water. So it supports life and it accumulates. So you get things like ancestry, you get things like history, you get things like memory, you get things like our emotional connections and bonds, you get the intuitive prompts that come into our brain, right? So these are all things that kind of collect and gather our ancestry and our family and our family karma and our history and our memory and our emotions. Those are all things that kind of accumulate within us, and then either we're aware of them or we're not, kind of like that, right? So with this new moon and within this lunar cycle that we're going to have, there's going to be a lot of activation of the watery houses and the watery signs within our chart too. So I feel like that even though this aspect is not quite there, you know, they're applying to that, but they're still like, what, like 4 or 5 degrees off yet, which is still getting close to that activation range for sure. It ups that relational, that connectional level. So it feels like, where are the connections that we are looking to bring in, right? Like, are we looking to connect more to others? Are we looking to connect more to our own emotions and to our own being? Are we looking to connect more to our history somehow, right? Are we looking to connect to our memory body, or maybe where our emotions have come from? Or is there something within the family, you know, within ancestry and within some sort of parental generational karma of something coming through, right? Are we working through things like that? That water element is really kind of starting to come through here with the new moon. And then, yeah, like I said, Venus is going to be sitting at the new moon degree at the time of the full moon. So that feels really, really significant as far as Venus wanting to bring forward Venus type things. So that's Tuesday. If we go ahead and move forward into Wednesday, October 22nd, we have the moon in the sign of Scorpio, and the sun moves into the sign of Scorpio here as well. So this just adds to that watery conglomerate that I'm just starting to talk about here, right? Emotions, intuitive connections here, and really swimming within what feels real or not. Scorpio does not like things that are fake. It does not like things that are superficial. It wants things to be real, true. It wants to get down to the base and the bottom of things. So there's no bullshitting around in the sign of Scorpio. So that's where the sun is. And Neptune is going to move back into the sign of Pisces this day. So that's just more water, right? Neptune has spent a lot of time here. Spent over a decade in the sign of Pisces. But earlier this year, it moved into Aries. So we've had that first little glimpse of Neptune in Aries, where it's going to spend a lot more time after it goes through this retrograde period. However, there's something that was left open in the sign of Pisces, or something that Neptune needs to revisit in the sign of Pisces and within the house of Pisces within our chart before it can really move forward, right? So there's still something left open, something undone, or still messages out there. I think about messages. What messages are coming through? Are there otherworldly spaces that have something to say? Are there dreamy, romantic inspirations that need to kind of come back? Neptune in Aries is ready, set, go, right? It's fire, it's passion, it's creativity, it's really feeling it strong into your convictions and maybe even acting on that or expressing that outwardly somehow, right? Aries is a masculine sign, so that outward expression. For sure. Neptune in the sign of Pisces is much more reflective. It's a feminine sign. It's more internal, more reflective, right? And it's the last sign of the zodiac too. So you get that reflection of everything else that it has went through. So you get the start in the sign of Aries and you get the finish, right? So if we started and initiated something, if Neptune moving into the sign of Aries lit some sort of fiery inspiration and passion on us, and we just started, you know, we just lit the candle and we just started going, but maybe things weren't quite sustainable yet. Maybe we jumped the gun on something. Maybe we moved a little bit quicker, even if we knew, maybe we knew we were moving a little bit too quick. Now, Neptune is stepping back into the sign of Pisces. We can slow down, we can reflect, we can see where a pause is needed. Is there a reminder that we've lost track of, right? Is there a purpose, or is there some intuitive guidance or some sort of inspiring motives that we need to feel re-enlivened by? Do we need to feel that again? You know, we have until the end of January. Neptune's going to be in the sign of Pisces. So we have until the end of January to re-inspire and re-enliven the magic within us. When I think of Pisces and Neptune in the sign of Pisces, I think about magical inspirations and magical intuitions coming through, things that are otherworldly, things that are a little bit difficult for our rational and our mundane mind to wrap itself around. We have to be able to expand, and we have to be able to let ourselves go a little bit to get to that space, right? I'm thinking about meditating on the actions we've taken since Neptune has moved into the sign of Aries. So this is a moment to slow down. This is a moment to reflect. Again, we have this through the end of the year and through January. But Where can you see some re-inspiration where is needed? Where can you see that, like, maybe the drive and the motivation is still there, but you can bring back a little bit of magic. You can bring back a little bit of a spark to be able to move forward, right? Something kind of like that. I really, really like this for that. If we move forward from Wednesday into Thursday, we have the moon in the sign of Scorpio still. And then if we move forward into, there's no major aspects here either. Moving forward into Friday, the 24th, moon starts out in the sign of Scorpio, but moves into the sign of Sagittarius just after midnight Eastern time. So really the moon's going to be in the sign of Sagittarius for most of the day. We have a couple aspects this day as well. So Mercury is going to start to make these aspects. I mentioned the watery aspects that Mercury and Mars are going to be making here. The trines that Mercury is going to make to Jupiter and to Saturn this week, it's going to hit 3 times because Mercury is going to move into the sign of Sagittarius, and then it's going to retrograde and it's going to move back into the sign of Scorpio, and it's going to hit Jupiter, it's going to hit Saturn again, and it's going to hit Neptune again too. So these watery trines are really going to be coming through here for a little while. So it's a little extra important, right? So Mercury and Jupiter coming together. Again, Mercury, our mind, thoughts, communications, everything to do with the mental sphere here, right? Also tools, resources, different helpful things that come towards us, different little insights, that's the mental thing. Those are all Mercury. Messages coming through from lots of different ways. Those are all mercurial things. Jupiter likes to bring knowledge. It likes to bring insights. It likes to bring understandings and enlightenments and knowledge. So when you have the mind, when you have Mercury and Jupiter coming together, you can have that very expanded mental sphere, right? Just on, especially within the trine aspect expands things. So you can have clear understandings, clear enlightenments and knowledge, and maybe questions to go along with it. Maybe there is some sort of understanding that comes through here, or some sort of little bit of wisdom or information. It can be big, it can be small. And maybe Mercury has a question. Maybe Mercury's a little bit curious. Mercury's still in the sign of Scorpio, so maybe it says, I want to understand a little more. I want to get a little bit deeper into this topic that I just heard of, or I just was given this book and I read this book, and then, it really interested me. So now I want to get further into the subject, kind of like that. I'm thinking about intuitive knowledge and information and communications coming through here. Messages from the other side, messages from whatever that means for you, right? From heaven, from angels, from past loved ones, from the universe, from God, inspiring messages of the universe coming through here, for sure. The knowledge and the information and the insights. I'm wondering about Jupiter being in the sign of Cancer, where it's exalted, and some of the insights coming through related to those Cancerian topics. So I'm thinking about kind of like that which has come before us, right? So in the sign of Cancer, we find a lot about origin. In the thema mundi, Cancer is on the ascendant. So Cancer represents the being coming birthed into the world in many ways. So what comes from before the, where does that being come from when something's birthed, right? So you have ancestry, you have family generational things coming through. We have our own memory body and conditionings, as well as the unconscious conditionings and the patterns and things that we have inherited from our families. Bonds and attachments that we have, are they healthy? Are they strong? Are they serving us well? Mercury in Scorpio is still going to dig really, really deep down. Those Mercury in Scorpio, when it comes into contact with Jupiter, it can bring lots of enlightenment, it can bring lots of encouragement, but not everything that Jupiter brings is necessarily easy. We like to think about Jupiter bringing positivity and abundance and strength and, expansion, right? Which it does. But it expands whatever it touches. So if Mercury in Scorpio is digging deep into the nooks and the crannies, and Jupiter's in the sign of Cancer, and what it has to offer is origins, it has to offer the place where we came from. So it has our memory body, it has that which, you know, from this life and past lives, if you subscribe to that like I do. And things that have come through from the family, right? Things that have come through from our past, from events that have happened before, or just dealing with our own emotional safety and emotional security here, right? It's a water element again, so there's a lot about emotional safety and security in the sign of Cancer, and then in the sign of Scorpio, there's a little bit more of an emotional intelligence. So there can really be some processing of emotional needs and emotional feelings, and that could be heavy, it could be a lot, and it could feel like there's a lot there, but it could also feel very supported with Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. Like, here's a safe space for you to explore and to be vulnerable from, to be able to move forward, right? Like, that's really kind of a nice way to be able to look at it. And at the same time, we have we have the Sun squaring Pluto in the sign of Aquarius. If you look at the modern tradition, then they put Pluto as the ruler of Scorpio. So that depth, that digging in, that intensity, that transformation, that's Pluto, right? I don't necessarily put the outer planets on rulership, but I can see where the correlations could be for sure. And the modern tradition does, so we shouldn't necessarily totally discredit that. Pluto is now moving in direct motion. When other planets came through the square, it was retrograde. So I think that is indicative of some sort of moving forward for the Sun, for our soul, for our passions, our motivations, that which fills us up, that which is eternal within us. The Sun represents our power, our purpose, strength, our soul connections, and our general path, right? And that internal God source portion of us. Pluto represents the underworld. It represents the unseen. It represents the unconscious, programmings, secrets, that which maybe we have ignored, that which we have stuffed down, put away, tucked away in the closet, things like that. So, you know, it can be heavy, it can be strength, but it doesn't have to be bad. Pluto can bring lots of great strength, lots of power, courage, and bravery. If something does come up here because it is a square, so there is a little bit of a challenge, then perhaps confronting whatever it is that comes up leads to a greater it brings whatever we are digging into and whatever comes up, perhaps it moves us into a space of illumination, a place of understanding, right? The Sun, you can think of it like a flashlight or a spotlight where it can shine a light on something. Okay, I can see this now. I see where the challenges is, and I see maybe what I need to do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the path is going to be easy, right? The Sun is in the superior position, which means it's a little bit stronger in the aspect. So the Sun is speaking to Pluto. You know, maybe the Sun is saying to Pluto, I want to stand purposefully and bright. How can you help me, right? It's a square. Like, how can you help me? I need something from you right now. I need to be able to do something. Pluto in Aquarius may be able to say, I can give you a deep perspective, digging down in, but it's going to be through a little bit of a wide angle awareness, thinking about that collective level that Pluto and the sign of Aquarius can bring, especially Aquarius, you know, or I can bring you the strength and courage that only can come from within you, or come from that below space, right? So on a collective level, this may bring up a humanitarian light, Pluto in the sign of Aquarius. Within our own personal level, it may have to do with the way we stand out in some sort of way, or we move inventively, or we stand in our own individual identity without feeling like we have to conform to other things or something like that. That humanistic, rational, logical support of the air, right, of Aquarius. It's a Saturn-ruled sign as well. And then that egalitarian level of it, equality, moral responsibility, you can see that in the sign of Aquarius. So On a personal level, looking to find strength, looking to find empowerment, looking to find grit and courage, the ability to be able to stand up for ourselves, right? To be able to assert ourselves. There can really be a lot of transformation with Pluto aspects, for sure. And then I'm thinking about release and regeneration. Both do this, both planets, but in different ways, right? Pluto breaks down and the sun enlightens. So Pluto breaks things down into little pieces to be able to rebuild it. The sun illuminates things, shows us what it really is, what it truly is. And then there may need to be some sort of release, and there could, there's regeneration that comes with the sun. Anytime that a planet comes into a conjunction with the sun, it's a resetting moment, right? So I'm thinking about release, being able to release and being able to regenerate, be able to rebuild from that. So maybe this is an invitation to release what is falling away, and some of those are harder than others, but maybe we'll be able to stand a little bit stronger afterwards. So that's Friday. And then if we move forward into Saturday, October 25th, then that's where Mercury is going to go ahead and make the trine to Saturn. Systems and structures. Systems and structures for Mercury with both Jupiter and with Saturn here, right? Especially when these two are combined here. Jupiter is the idealistic systems, the governing bodies. Saturn are the structures that contain, structures that give form, where Jupiter gives a moral or an ethical consideration, right? So I think about Saturn being like a physical structure that we could be in, right? Like a house that can contain things and keep things organized or safe. Saturn in the sign of Pisces, you could think about like a glass that holds water and holds form to it, right? Jupiter could be making sure the water is ethically sourced, making sure the water is whole, complete, and can nourish us well and doesn't have any contaminants in it, kind of something like that. So the ability, Mercury again, mind, mental sphere things. Saturn brings that structure and it brings form to things. So the ability to strategize and configure things together, being able to marry those structures and those forms with the mental sphere. Maybe we're reconfigurating because Saturn is retrograde in the sign of Pisces. Maybe we are exploring heavy feelings because Saturn in Pisces can really feel into the water, right? It can really feel weighed down and weighty by the water too. So maybe the feelings are becoming weighty. Maybe there's a melancholic longing for something that was or something that was before. Saturn can represent death, can represent release. And Mercury in the sign of Scorpio steeps within what comes up, right? So really feeling into those feelings of maybe what once was. And Saturn was in the sign of Pisces before, moved back into Aries, and then moved back into the sign of Pisces. So maybe we're having some sort of returning feeling there coming through as well. And maybe that longing can inspire us to be able to move forward, right? That would be really, really cool. So Mercury making these two trines to this week to both Jupiter and to Saturn. Mars is going to do the same thing next week. This puts this together in a grand air trine. If I go ahead and put the chart up here, let's see, this is set for Sunday. I'm going to go ahead and bring it forward closer towards the end of the week here, and we can see Mercury. This is for Friday. Mercury's at 24 degrees of Scorpio. Jupiter's at 24 degrees of Cancer, and Saturn's at 26 degrees of Pisces here. So you see this trine, this triangle form. This is a grand air trine where all three of these planets are interacting together, right? Mental connections, mental sphere, all of the mental areas of our chart, those three houses, connecting and working together. So messages and understandings coming through as a whole. Mental and emotional connections, awareness and communication. The mental awareness that can come through in these watery areas, with Mercury being the personal planet that is currently activating these other planets, really marries the mental sphere and the emotional sphere. Remember that Mercury is going to make these aspects again. It's going to retrograde, so we're going to have these happen 3 times. So really uncovering, processing and diving deep down into things here is very possible. Again, water collects. So I think a lot about where water nurtures life, and water has a lot to do with where we came from. All of us, before we were born, when we're in the womb, we're sitting in a sack of water, right? You need water to survive. Plants need water to grow. You need water to germinate seeds. Life comes from water, right? A lot of that, we know that. We're out there looking on other planets for water so we can try to find signs of life. So the place where life comes from. Again, that's where you get the family, that's where you get the ancestry, that's where you get the memory bodies and, you know, the conscious and unconscious. You get all of those things that could be coming up here through October and through November, quite honestly. So it's also a very fertile birthing place, right, of creation. So like we come from the water, right? We come from the waters. So what is bathing in the fertile waters for you right now, right? What creations are waiting there? There's a lot of connections here. There's a lot of watery emotional connections where we can just really deeply connect to things. So start to think about that. Think about what is your mind creating and where are these fertile creative connections happening in your life? Where are you feeling that pull? Maybe there's some uncovering of things. Maybe there's some uncovering of things that make you feel comfortable, make you feel safe, and then you can explore what is coming together in a creative process for you in somehow. What are you learning about yourself? What are you learning about your own emotional well-being right now? These are questions that we can all ask ourselves through October and into November as well. So, if we're thinking about the emotional well-being of ourselves, then we can also be thinking about the emotional well-being of others as well too. I think that's appropriate. So we got a lot coming through here this week. We start out with Mercury and Mars, and they're going to sit together, and then Mercury is going to make these trines. We have that new moon in the sign of Libra. Venus has went through some great transformations herself within the last couple weeks. When she moved into the sign of Libra, we talked about the aspects that she made, so you can go back to those other videos. She's really been through a transformation, and now she's ready to create something new, start and initiate. And then there's all this other configuring energy coming through just off of the new moon that's maybe going to allow us to bring those mental and those emotional spheres together. So I think there's a lot of cool creation energy coming through here this week, a lot of ability. So thank you for walking through the week with me. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope it's been informative and helpful. If it is, and you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and turn the notifications on so that way you see when the weekly videos come out. But they come out every Saturday morning as well. And then check out our live meditations. Come join us and come sit with the energies and meditate with us. Create your own personal relationship and connection to the sky, to the astrology, to what's going on, but do it within a group, within others that want to do the same thing. So yeah, thank you for sticking with me and walking through the journey of this week with me. I hope everybody has a great week, and I will see you next time. Take care, everybody.